You will never find a more wretched hive, scum and
Destiny.
Fulfill your destiny.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Once again, Star Wars Destiny fans, the time has come. I'm Jim the Tank with Scum and Destiny, and I'm here with my buddy, Swagdean from Dice Commando. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great.
Looking good. The beard's looking on point, my friend. Definitely.
Thank you.
There you go. So what are we doing here tonight? So this is our first live video chat of a Scum and Destiny episode. Everything else has been either IRL or TTS matches. So this is an inaugural thing happening here. There should be like confetti and horns and stuff going on. But we'll just we'll play it casual because that's usually how I roll. Yeah, right. Anyway, we are actually here for a very special event. It is spoiler season for Dicey Companions Draft Support Kit, and we all have Swagdean with obviously with the help of Andrew to thank for that. So Swag, first of all, so do I call you Swag, Mr. Dean, Swagger? Like what's the preferred context here?
Dean is fine. Swag is. I mean, that'd be new. I wouldn't hate that.
Okay. Now, where does the name come from? There's got to be a cool backstory to that, like issue 0. Cool. Oh, come on.
So
make something up.
Originally, a couple years back, me and a friend of mine had a website where we would we'd talk about video games and especially like the collectibles that came along with it. So like the swag.
Yeah.
So our website was gamingwithswag.com.
Okay.
And so I was Swagdean, he was Swag Chris.
Okay.
And then like COVID hit, and we eventually started getting into a lot more board game stuff. COVID hits, it kind of makes it hard to like get together and play board games and review them. And so that our website kind of dried out. We still run some like Facebook groups and things like that, but the website is somewhat kaput. But I kept that. I already had that name in Discord and other places, so that's its origin.
I think I might have told you this when you and I were play testing some of these the draft kit on TTS. Because I used to handle the merchandise for the Misfits, a lot of when you hook up the local crew with free T-shirts and stuff, that's called swag, and it's actually I guess the term's an acronym or when each letter stands for something. Acronym.
Yep.
It actually stands for stuff we all get. So we all get a bit of Swagdean tonight, and we thank him for that because this is going to be freaking cool. I'm very excited. I feel like I'm one of the uber cool kids now because I've actually been gifted. We've actually been gifted, as in Scum and Destiny, a couple of spoilers. So what we're looking at right now is of course the Scum and Destiny team, or at least 5 of the core members. We've got Sylvie, Justin, myself, Mac, and everybody knows Patrick because he's all over the interwebs. But that's our Scum and Destiny team, our unusual reject. So that might be a card sleeve coming down the pipe, maybe for Gen Con 24, something fun like that. Ooh. But yeah, okay. So speaking of spoilers, that's your spoiler right there. Okay. But behind that, we have some really cool stuff. Is there anything you want to back this up with before we actually get into the actual cards? I'm just buying time here to like really ramp up the audience and buy some more airtime because everybody's paying their advertising dollars right now.
Sure. I guess we can just quick premise, just in case they're unfamiliar. So Dicey Companions is going to be a draft kit, and it is to support specifically the ARH era. So there was 2 draft kits that FFG made. There was Rivals and then Allies of Necessity. And so this is a kit that is very similar. It's 21 cards instead of 20. But otherwise, it's a very similar setup to what we've had in the past. But this one is designed specifically to support ARH's innovations, ARH power levels, things like that. So that's what the set is. I'm trying to call that format drafted combat. So there's you always have the possibility of expansions to it, and trying to bring it back because it's something that we used to play a lot. And then with the ARH era, it's kind of fallen away for a ton of reasons, all of which are pretty legitimate.
Yeah.
Because ARH doesn't make packs. There's
Right.
not a physical product quite like that. So
Right.
like that format's kind of fallen away, but it's a wonderful casual event. It's
Yep.
a great way to experiment and learn new sets. And I want to get back to having that as an option for people.
Sure. Okay. Well, I love. I think a lot of people are big fans of draft. It's just in the FFG days, it always costs you money. It could be a set you've already got 2 play sets of, and you're drafting again. Like, this is kind of a waste of money, but it's fun. What do I do? I do have an FFG era draft cube that is all in one huge Iris case for up to 8 players, and I could almost picture an IRL version of an ARH draft cube with Dicey Companions or another set down the line being a thing. I mean, I know a lot of ARH is happening TTS these days, and that it is what it is. But there's always Gen Con, there's always Norman's event in St. Louis, there's always Liquid Snakes events. So there's still Rando Mando had a big event. So there's still IRL happening. The guys over in UK are doing their Swindon laundromat stuff. I could see this like on a casual Friday night before the actual renewed Prime kicks off. This being something that we all get flocked to. Look at the popularity of Smash. It sold out immediately when the tickets went on sale for Gen Con 23. And right away, Maja was like, oh, I've got to add more tickets, my God. And now we're talking like, should we do 48 tickets next year? Like, what should we do? Holy crap. So there's definitely a fever. I got a fever. And the only prescription is more casual board gameization of Destiny. It's fun. We can't all compete when it comes to showing up with our top meta decks against the best players, but we can all compete when we level the playing field. Could be a great way to bring new players in. I know SWU, dare I say the unlimited word, is breathing down our necks, but I'm looking, Chris Costello at Silver Sun Games and we've been talking about ways to cross-mogenate the 2 scenes and actually get some SWU players to kind of go, oh, wait, there's a free game that we could be playing too? And it's Star Wars, and it used to be FFG, and why don't we check it out? And so we'll see. And if we can do a draft format like this where they don't need to show up with a built deck, they kind of build it on the spot, this could be a thing. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? So thank you for doing this work. You and I got, like I said before, got on TTS. We did some play testing. It was really cool, guys. Really freaking cool. A lot of fun. So I'm excited to spoil this stuff. So if without further ado, should we get into our first card?
Let's jump into it.
I know everybody at home is like, come on, Tank, stop talking and show us the damn spoiler. So
Jump to the art.
Here we go with some gorgeous art coming up. Bang! There he is, Poe Dameron. Take it away, Mr. Dean.
Sure. So with this set, you'll see there on the left side that this is a parallel die, so that little symbol in the 073. So this is the Covert Missions Poe. All of the dice in this kit are using parallel dice. So if you have an old FFG collection, you can use dice that, in theory you already have. I'm trying to make it easier for people IRL. So that's where Poe is coming from. This is the Covert Missions Poe. So you get more use out of that legendary if you had him. He's also, all of the characters in the draft kit are also not in ARH currently, and they're not in the next set. So I can spoil that they are not coming up. So that way, if you were to draft a Poe, now they can have them, like Count Dooku was in the Allies of Necessity, and I think he was also Way of the Force character. So it doesn't preclude them from designing a Poe in the future. But I wanted to make it so that you wouldn't have any clear conflicts, at least up front, on these characters. So we have Poe Dameron, hotshot pilot. He's got 10 health, which is a little bit less than another 11-point character likely would be if you were to draft one from ARH. But he's got some really great die sides from his character. So 2 range, 2 indirect, discard resource. He's a leader pilot, so there's lots of keyword things that it's kicking off for the ARH era. There's lots of support for leader. There's lots of support for pilot. He has piloting, so you get a little bit of that action cheating if you can get some vehicles out. And then he has a power action where if you discard a non-red card from your hand, you can draw a card. So he lets you cycle your deck a little bit, which is
Interesting.
like the efficiency of the red class is kind of what I was our faction
Yeah.
that I was kind of shooting for. So as long as you have something in your hand that's not red, you can try to get another card. And then if you draw a hand, you don't have any dice cards, and you can then get one. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a nice ability. So there's like very functional
Yep.
abilities. It's a good, useful character. But if you drafted another 11, 10 to 12 cost red character, the theory is that you would pick them over
Right.
Poe. You'd fall in love with them more than Poe. But if you didn't draft a red character, that you'd be happy to roll Poe out there.
Right. Yeah. And he kind of comes with like half a lavish cape here, so that's kind of cool. Being a big fan of lavish cape, lavish cape myself.
It's
Interesting.
a wonderful card with wonderful art.
Yeah, exactly.
Love me some Lando.
Yeah. So you guys had you and Andrew had talked about a DJ when you spoiled that earlier last week. How
we
he's
know half
only
the characters now.
yeah. Well, there you go. He's only standard. There is no elite option, which I find fascinating. A unique
'cause
character
I
that's
didn't. So yeah, so I guess we should say for those who didn't watch the announcement. So this
oh,
is
spoiler
not
alert!
going to
Spoiler alert!
be,
Yeah, sorry.
Legal in constructed play for ARH. So this set is only to support this limited format. So they
Right.
were not tested at an elite value because it's not possible to get them in an elite value in this format.
Okay.
With that said, like all of the cards were designed to be compatible with ARH. So if in a future set they were like, hey, we liked that Poe, he worked, what if we make him 11, 14 and add him to the next set? Like they can do that with my blessing.
Right.
But if not, he is just for this thing. So
Yeah.
he's not going to be ARH standard. They may or may not ever show up on the DB. So you can't really deck build with them. It's really just for drafting that these things will exist.
Totally makes sense. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. And I think you and Andrew talked about this. There was some wind blowing about an official ARH draft kit, like a yearish ago, something like
It
that.
was a while back, yeah.
Okay, and then that just
So-
kind of never went anywhere.
So designing these sets is difficult and interesting. Like I found it interesting as a challenge, but like it's you have to make cards that like really function, but way over form, function over form
Yeah.
for sure. So
Yeah.
like the characters can't necessarily be as awesome. And so the team that was designing them, they were making really awesome characters, but they didn't facilitate drafting as well.
Okay.
And there were a couple other issues that come up with like making draft work for the ARH era because we just have a lot smaller card pools, especially when it comes to non-dice cards. Like your standard set only has like about 40 to 50,
Yeah.
and that's just like that's 120 less than an FFG era set would have had.
Right.
So it's just a lot less. And then when you draft, typically you'd have 8 dice cards and 32 non-dice cards. So that means that you are already using up the majority of the non-dice cards in a set
Yeah.
in a draft. So
Right.
like we had to come up with ways to deal with that. And I think that just kind of got bogged down, and they were already, it's an all volunteer group and they're looking at making another full set.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of them got absorbed in. So characters, I think Cobb Vanth, I think Red Palpatine, I think there was an Inquisitor or somebody were the ones that they were kicking around. And so they just got modified and put into a future set. So like it wasn't like it was wasted effort, but it just didn't quite come together for a draft product.
Sure.
And like I said, with their limited resources, their main drive being to release full, complete sets, like that should be job one.
Right.
And they
Right.
can leave nonsense like this to people like me to support the casual side.
Yeah.
And they don't have to worry about it working in their, like anything in their draft kit had to then, like the sets in FFG, they had to work in constructed. So like they weren't just testing this 20 card set.
Yeah.
They also had to test, can you break this with our existing pool of cards? And that's just a lot more on their plate. Whereas with me, my only test was, can you draft with this? Can you build decks that people will enjoy playing, that are relatively fair back and forth, where you don't build the same thing every time. Like, so you don't want to make it so that you just choose like the draft characters
Yeah.
in the kit. Like you have to use the cards that you get. And so like those are my jobs. I do not have to worry at all about if these can be broken with other things.
Yeah.
So it opens up my design space that they couldn't. So like I have cards in here that like are breakable in a constructed format. And in this format, they just kind of open things up and make them possible. But if you were to, you could make evil pairings with some of this stuff. So
I love evil
like
pairings.
I would never convert this whole kit into ARH. I would definitely I would pick and choose a handful. But there are some that haven't been spoiled yet that like, yeah, you could probably abuse that in a weird way.
Yeah, you could throw some cluster missiles in that TIE squadron and make it wreck everybody's day.
I don't know if it's broken quite like that. It's a pretty unique broken thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely some stuff where there would be some unintended possibilities.
Well, I don't know if you're aware right now, but the special this month on the ARH monthly league is that you can play with Allies of Necessity, the plot, the -2 plot, which I've always loved, just because it was -2. So I gotta wonder if maybe down the road it might be like Casero might be like, okay, this month Poe Dameron from the Dicey Companions is legal in the ARH league. Have fun.
Yeah.
See if you can break him or something. So that's something we can kind of put on the back burner. But that's really cool. So before we go to the next spoiler, I know everybody's like, come on, just hurry up. I want to see these freaking spoilers. How did you and Andrew? How did this project come about for you guys? Sort of taking the ball and running with it for ARH in some regard.
So for me, I'd been working on Smash, and that's my main baby now. But for ARH Smash, I'm kind of waiting for new sets.
Right.
I need more cards to work with because I don't want to build decks that are too similar.
Sure.
And like I like them to kind of stand on their own. They have their own feel. They have their own function. So. And that was the challenge, like with the FFG era stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of red villains, but I want each one to feel distinct, even if they're similar. I don't want Phasma to feel like, the double Faust, even though they're both red trooper villain decks.
Yeah.
They have to have a whole different dynamic, or it's not worth adding. And so for the ARH stuff, I'm waiting on new sets so I can have more of that uniqueness potential. And just being bored waiting. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to kick around the idea of the draft kit. It's something that, I was going to be a tester on that last one. So it's been around. It's something I've chatted with other people with. I played a game the other night with Wookie Smell. And like when I was lining up to play with him, like I saw conversations that we had 2 years ago about the logistics of a draft with ARH stuff. So like it's been something we've been kicking around. Sure. And then I had a lot of fun designing cards for the Good, Bad, and the Ugly stuff that they had been doing over in OTS. And that other card builder was a lot of fun to mess around with and was easy for me.
Yeah.
Art is not my specialty, so all of these pretty cards, I may have found and picked some of the art, but Andrew made all of that happen. That's more his specialty.
Right.
So after I went through and I was like, I can build decent proxies that will look decent. And let me just start playing around with it. And then as I was playing around with it, I was like, okay, this stuff is working. And I'd already thought about a lot of these things in the past. So then it was just like, okay, I want to do parallel dice. Which characters make sense? And then trying to find artwork that is close enough to the art that's on the old die as much as possible.
Yeah,
so tell which goes with what.
That's a trick.
So
okay.
So that's been interesting also. And so you'll see with some of the choices I've had to make later, like, okay, I can see how he got there. So yeah, so it's building some time. So Andrew's been pretty busy. So like the majority of the design and everything was me, and then I bounced ideas off of I kicked things to you, I kicked things to Andrew as I'm designing it, and then my friend George, who I'd play with a ton. He is not a Discord guy, so like he doesn't have an online presence, but he's my IRL Destiny guy.
Sure.
I've done a lot of play testing with him, which is nice because he can't spoil anything to anyone. He doesn't have social media like that. So I've done a lot of testing with him, and so I was able to get a lot of testing done because my goal was to not tax the ARH team because they have enough on their plate.
Sure.
I don't want to have them worry about this. However, I will say that Super DK, I reached out to him to double check my wording,
God,
and
yeah.
then it was brutal because like I'd been playing Destiny a long time. I'd
Right.
written all these things. I've read all these cards,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so wrong on like so many basic stupid things. Like,
Right.
so if I didn't just straight steal an ability from another card, I messed up the
You
wording.
butchered the wording. Yeah.
So Super DK, definitely giving him credit because he fixed a lot of the wording on these cards and made them like mine were grammatically correct, but they just weren't like they weren't in the same wording style of all the previous cards, which and like the language, and then like some of that stuff is broken down in the rules. So
Sure.
it's like
Yeah.
you do want to use the correct terminology.
Yep.
So, so he also assisted with this kit
Cool.
more recently as we go to these final arts on these cards. Super DK definitely took a pass on that template.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. He's always my go-to for does this really work the way I think it does? And he said, no, Tank, it doesn't. Stop
Doesn't
talking
do
to
that
me.
thing.
Yeah, you were talking about the Smash and trying to get even though you got one red villain deck and another red villain trooper deck and trying to make them feel different. I'm sure you remember Andrew's Galactic Grunts. I don't know if you had any input on that or not, but I've been trying
That's
to
all
make.
him.
Okay, I've been trying to make that a thing. In fact, he actually told me sometime pre Gen Con 23. He said, if you can make Galactic Grunts like an actual event, I've actually got prize support ready to go for that because it never took off. I have printed out all of his all the characters he created, all the teams. Gave him. I took the Destiny Smash card back and made it a Galactic Grunt card back because I do a lot of the artwork. I do all the artwork myself here at Scum and Destiny. And I'm like, all right, I want to make these decks, but I don't want to just make those decks. I want to make other Galactic Grunts decks and mix it up between neutral and villain and hero and this color and that color. But then limiting myself to no unique cards, no legendary cards, and still making each deck play differently than the last one. Okay, easier said than done. Maybe I do need to allow one unique card or one legend. Like something's got to change because otherwise it's just the same weapons, the same upgrades. It's the same thing over and over again.
Everyone's got a holdout blaster.
Exactly, yeah. It's neutral gray. It's in every freaking deck. So yeah, I get you. I feel you on the struggle is real. Trying to keep it unique, fun, and exciting. And you've been doing a great job. I mean, freaking golf clap, bro. You're nailing it. You're nailing it. I just finally got all my ARH Smash cards printed correctly this past week and got them all. I was at the Honda dealer this morning with a big stack of cards in front of me and my corner punch, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk for like an hour and a half. But that's what I love to do. Hopefully we'll get you down to Silver Sun. We talked about that. Maybe we'll do an IRL ARH draft on webcam at our gaming table to show people how easy and fun it is to get maybe some new people in the door doing this thing. So yeah, that's something we'll talk about in the future. But in the meantime, we will talk about perhaps another spoiler. This was one that you had said you saved specifically for Scum and Destiny, as there was a reason for it. And if you might remember, if you didn't fast forward through our intro, our tagline is, you will never find a more wretched hive of Scum and Destiny. Well, here you go. Mos Eisley Cantina. And yes, folks, Han did shoot first. Sorry to break it to you. Spoiler alert. So tell us about this one, because freaking hey, it's a battlefield, buddy. Come on, let's have some fun. Where's my K3PO to do this time and time and time again?
I will say that battlefields were the hardest to design. If you make them too powerful or too interesting, it breaks the game the fastest. I can see why battlefields are the toughest, why you don't always have like a ton of battlefields for each ARH release, because they can break the game pretty fast and they can make things not fun. Even if it's like, it doesn't seem like that powerful, but like when you can do it every round. So there was so actually when we tested, I had a different version of a battlefield that this one actually replaced, where when you would claim, you could pay one resource to deal 2 indirect. And I was like, that, at the end of a round, like if you still had resources left over, you could decide to spend one of them to do two indirect. But the problem is that if you did that and then you opened the next round with it and did it again, because you always have and you killed someone, like that wasn't very interactive.
Yeah.
So then it was like, well, I could add a restriction where, like, you have to have a certain number of cards in hand. So, like, you can't do it as a first action of a round. And then it's like, now I'm getting too complicated on this card. So, like, there was a couple different iterations of battlefields. And then ultimately on this one, I landed on an established card dynamic. So there was the card Cantina Brawl. And this is exactly that card as a claim event. So you deal 1 damage, and then if that opponent can then discard a card from their hand to punch you back.
Right.
So it's thematic with the Cantina, and then I was surprised that there's never actually been a Maz Eisley Cantina battlefield in the history of Destiny. They didn't do it in FFG era either.
Huh.
So I was like, well, that's just wrong. I'm actually potentially correcting a
correcting history here. Yeah.
running problem. How is one of the most famous locations in all of Star Wars not a battlefield? So I felt like this was thematic. I love the art on this one.
Yeah.
And
nice.
And then there's a little bit of safety in that dynamic where this is a proven FFG ability. And it's fun, and and it works towards a win condition. Obviously, you win by dealing damage or milling. This can do both. If you hit them, and then they discard a card to hit you back.
The mill and kill battlefield right here. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave them a damage, and you took away a card, or you made it tougher. Like, do I want to hang on to this card so I can re-roll more of the dice that I have left, or do I want to punch you back? And sometimes it's an inefficient format. Like, you might have a card in your hand that's dead because, it may reference a character who's now no longer alive. And you're like, man, that's actually a great use for this card. Right. I hope he claims so I can punch him.
Yeah.
So I can turn this card into a damage. So I think it's a fun back and forth interaction. And that is kind of the kit. A draft kit is supposed to introduce people to Destiny. Like, it's possible this will be something that new people play. So, like, you want to get them in that, like, interactive back and forth nature of this. It's one of the best things about this game.
I like
cards that enforce that. Like, this is the feel of this game. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of interacting with your opponent. It's not a lot of solitaire. I'm going to do all these things, do all those things.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and you can punch back at me. And, like, that dynamic interaction is, like, part of the magic of Destiny. So I like that this battlefield gave us that.
Yeah, the game of reciprocity. It's good that these cards are not going to be standard legal with the ARH, because I'm already formulating how, with K3PO in a villain deck, I could claim the battle or use the claim ability on the battlefield many, many times in a turn until my opponent is out of cards. I've milled their hand, and I just keep hitting them with the damage. So, yeah, it's good that we have those rules in place, because Tank is always formulating stupid stuff. Formulating the jank. Yeah.
It's fair. And I'm glad, because, like, this is a perfect draft type battlefield. But yeah, like, if it clashes with constructed stuff, like, they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Have to worry about that, because you're not likely to get that perfect combination in a draft.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no way. Yeah, that would have to be so put together at a time. Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, again, you could have, so in Rivals, everybody knows that Hidden Motive was a really really big card. It was big in the meta for a while. Great card. It was a blue, I believe, a 0 cost event that said re-roll an opponent, or choose a symbol, re-roll an opponent's die. If it hits that symbol, remove the die. So it wasn't a guaranteed removal, but it was a guaranteed you would not see that side again. So it worked really, really well. It foibled me many, many times. But it's again, for that reason, you could have a Hidden Motive level card in this 21 card set, but we don't have to worry about it like wreaking havoc in the meta in the near future for the fact that we're keeping them separate. So that's cool.
I did try to have an innovative blue non-dice card in the deck. I don't think it's at that power level, but I think it's good.
Cool.
So that's something that's coming down the line.
Yeah. Now, so tell me about how will the draft format work with what I keep calling it Dicey Companions, but you're calling it the drafted combat.
Graphic combat will hopefully be the format, and then
Yeah.
this is the Dicey Companion kit.
The kit.
If that gets complicated, I hope.
No, that's good. That's just me
I'm
being
trying
an
to
idiot.
differentiate, because I wanted to build height. Because Dicey Companions is great, but like as a format, it's not the same. We didn't really, when we talked about draft, we didn't say it's a necessity, things like that. So I felt like it was good to have branding on both. Like this is the Dicey Companion kit.
Yeah.
And it'll be easy to reference to it that way. But this format, I'm hoping, is bigger than this kit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just like getting people back in, like, this is a format. This is the thing we do. We play drafted combat. So the way it would work is, so there's a couple different ways to do it. So I tested, not only did I test FFG era, because I did, because I wanted to help stores. Like if Silver Sun has a bunch of packs of Way of the Force around, you could say, we're gonna do a draft, but we're gonna do it with the fun new draft kit. But you can it still works with FFG stuff, so they can burn through packs. It's still fun to go through and get those things, and even if you're not collecting those old things, like there's smashed cards in there that might be good for you.
Yeah,
there might be parallel dice from Heater in there. Some of those cards still have some value. You could sell online or whatever.
Way of the Force,
so
you could pull Vader.
Yeah,
It happens.
you could always pull something like that. And then so it does work.
I'm sorry, that's
FFG
across the
era.
galaxy. Don't listen to me. Jeez.
But
Go
for
ahead.
ARH, I tested both running a full set. So then we get away from that, like there's only 50 non-dice cards. If you were to do a full block, so like the FA block, now you have 150 or so non-dice cards. And when you shuffle those together, you get a lot more diversity in your card pool. But it's still a bunch of cards that were like made to play together. They were part of a set. So you could do a draft where you're just one. We're going to do just 2 Faltering Allegiances, and you can totally draft that. You can do. I'm going to do the FA cycle and just draft that. And in TTS, that's very easy. You just pull those.
Yep.
We'll probably have some files pre-separated for people.
Cool.
I did take a bunch of cards out of some of them. So like for the FA cycle, I pulled 16 cards. They're just not in the format, because they are super specific. So like the plots where it's like you can only have this if all of your characters are an Inquisitor. Like that's that's not gonna work. And there's a bunch of things like that. Spot 3 of this, and like that's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna get 3 of any particular thing.
You know what would probably work
draft.
wonders in draft is unique perspectives, actually, because your team is going to be so wonky. That's going to fit right in. Almost
it's actually
every
a wonderful card to get in draft.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, so there's a lot of things like that I just pulled out that because they watered down what you got to draft with if you got a bunch of those. So the way I did it is that you'd take your set of cards, you'd pull out any that I banned. So there's 1 from the UH block, none from the most recent kit, and 16 from the FA cycle. You'd pull those out. I had 2 copies of everything except for plots, battlefields, and unique single value characters. So like Marva, Uncle Owen, people like if you got 2 Uncle Owens, you can't do
what are you going to do? Yeah,
he's unique, but he doesn't have an elite value.
Right.
That was what I was doing. So that's how I built everything. Now in my testing, because I was mostly doing it in TTS, I was letting people that brought cards have them. So if you used is it Marin? Is it Marin that like brings a witch or something like that?
Yeah.
Or like the Kylo where you get 2 copies of Feel Your Anger and Anger.
Yep.
If you Akbar where he brings in X-Wings, I was letting them have those cards because they were built into their cost. So you might want those set aside cards to come as well.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're drafting from those things, or if you just wanted to pull them, you could. I didn't think flippable characters were fair. So because it's a slower format, you'll always get the ability to flip, and then just like one person have a team that's much bigger. So I only used the elite side, the big side. So like Maul, you could use Maul, but I only used the big side of them when drafting. So that was
how about the we will watch your career closely plot, flippable to Vader.
I don't remember if I pulled that one specifically. What set was that from? I have a list somewhere I can try to pull, but
Of Renewed Hope. I don't know which set that was from specifically, but that's that's a
Yeah, there's a
fun
bunch of
project
things
to
that I
make it work.
pulled, but like it was like 501st Assault Team,
Uh-huh.
Protect the Child, Pieces of Lie,
Okay.
Kyber Quest, Inquisitorious, Intelligence Operation, the Han Solo, like the Stormtrooper one, where he's like where he like really only works if he's elite.
Yeah.
I didn't think you
Yeah.
would get that very often. I pulled
Right.
that. The 4040 one, where it's like a whole different format.
Yep.
plot.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
obviously no good.
Right.
From the UH cycle, I pulled Hunt and Eliminate because that's like what all bounty hunters. So like anything that had like you get it's only constructed function
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah.
I pulled a lot of those. I'll make that list happen
Okay.
somewhere for people.
Right on.
So they can take those things out if they wanted to build it themselves.
Right.
But really, you could mix and match. If you happened IRL, if you had, Redemption and Resurgence, and those are the two kits that you bought from Trey or whatever, you can draft them. Just
Right.
separate the dice cards from the non-dice cards. You take out any that I banned, single copies of the Plots Battlefield, single uniques, and you can draft with it. Shuffle up and draw.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Trey at Kingwood Hobbies and Sarah at Laser Gaming. As far as I know, those are the two places still actively selling physical copies of printed cards and dice labels. So if anybody wants to jump on that, by all means, look them up. They're both great people to work with. I love them both.
They're great. I
Yeah.
have some of their stuff from each of them. I have different
Same.
stuff.
Same. Yeah.
And this will be a free print and play. So there's no charge on our side. We're going to give the PDFs. People can print them at their leisure. They can take it to Staples. They can. I don't know if I haven't reached out to them, but if they wanted to print them,
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
If they wanted to make their own die stickers, they could. I mean, we used parallels, but if you don't have them, most of them are pretty easy to get. Actually, Poe is probably the hardest one.
Yeah.
Because Covert Missions was not printed as heavily.
Short run.
But you only need one copy, so it's not an elite like in Smash. You just need one Poe. And I did actually look at the values of these cards. I wanted to see because
cool.
we definitely impacted prices with Smash.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Smash first came out, there was like 3 copies of Neiman Mastery needed. I'm like, whoa, who has that?
There's actually only 2.
Okay,
but,
well, that was
but
2,
those 2
one more than most
matter.
people have. Yeah,
And we were like, you can't add it anymore. It's done. Neiman's done.
Neiman is definitely done.
But like Entangle and Riot Shields.
Shields, big time.
They got expensive.
Big time.
And so like when I did phase 3, it was like I need to find new mitigation cards. So like it's like we're doing Undermine and like other decent mitigation cards that are not like crazy expensive because by that point we were starting to impact those prices.
Yeah.
And I was trying not to make it harder for IRL, but I have them all IRL, so like I don't want to have to go and chase these things.
Yeah. Because of the way Riot Shields took off, one of the Scum and Destiny physical promo cards is a Riot Shield, just so you can proxy it in and still play with the the physical card because you don't have the $20 to pay for an uncommon. My God. So
I'm actually one Riot Shield short for my set. I have a knockoff, so
I'll have to send you some Scum and Destiny. I'll send you some Scum and Destiny promos.
That's great.
That's one of the good ones. So hopefully, I know you've got some plans for more spoilers coming out with you and Andrew, the OTS crew, the as I call them, the Mighty Mighty Bostonians, but Casero and his crew, the Sons of Destiny. Hopefully, Echo Base. So we got more to come, and then eventually, what's the actual hopeful street date, so to speak, for Dicey Companions?
Sure. So we were trying to get like a month ahead of their official release. They haven't given one yet, so it's looking now like end of February, early March, something like that. So we're
Afra's still alive. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it'll probably be like end of this month or beginning of February, something like that, because we want to be at least a month in advance. It gives people time to hunt all these parallels down.
Yeah.
Get them printed, get that sorted, and also we didn't want to step on their spoiler season as much.
Exactly.
So like, we'll drop this, and then hopefully they'll have like at least a month of like, they're the best
stuff.
thing. They got spoilers. They're doing their thing. We want to be part of the hype machine for the next set. We don't want to steal it. We want to support that.
Don't steal the thunder. Right on. So hopefully after we do have Dicey Companions in everybody's hands, do you have plans for like doing some official TTS videos or something to show people how you do a TTS draft? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
there'll be a video. I haven't because I'm still waiting on. We're still waiting on final art at the moment for all these different things. But once all of those the arts are final, then we'll get the TTS file proper,
Cool.
and
Cool.
I'll do some videos where I show people how I draft it, how I recommend drafting it, and in TTS at least. And then, like I said, IRL, it's similar. It's just depending on what you have on hand.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
Well,
figure all that
with
stuff out.
when it comes to physical cards, I'm probably the king in that regard. I've got I think a case of each FFG set ever released up in the attic. Like why? I don't know because the price has dropped so hard. I wanted to stockpile. And then I print cards nonstop for ARH. But perhaps what we can do is I know Chris Costello at Silver Sun and I have been talking recently about because the IRL scene has been kind of pushed out by Lorcana, and now Unlimited is coming out. Magic is ramping up to their weekly events. We don't really have enough room for the Destiny IRL crew to come in and play every Friday night like we used to. So we're transitioning to online play, which has there's some positive stuff there because it opens us to a broader horizon. But there will still be IRL in the sense that there will be big events hosted 2-3 times a year, a renewed open, a couple galactic whatever's a renewed prime, galactic open, whatever the heck they're called, to bring
Yeah.
some actual butts into seats in the store. So maybe what we could do is the next big event that we have coming up, IRL, we could do like a Friday night casual draft. You and I figure out ahead of time like what format we want to do, and I can just bring in all those cards. Sitting on the shelf at Silver Sun is still unopened boxes of Legacies, Way of the Force, Across the Galaxy, and Convergence. I think the black boxes, Spark of Hope, and obviously the last set. Oh my God, Covert Mission. Jesus, they're in limited supply. So we've got some possibilities there and then we can run the webcam on our game table and show people how to IRL the draft
Sure.
too, which is hopefully just as fun as the TTS stuff. Wow. Well, very cool. I'm excited. I know a lot of other people are gonna be after this. I can't thank you enough for thinking of us scum when it came to spoiler time. Is there anything
Sure.
else you'd like to touch on before we bid farewell to all our scummy fans?
I had one more little nonsense thing that I wanted to do specifically for you as
Uh-oh.
someone who appreciates um, cosplay and role playing and stuff like that as you do.
As you
So
do. Here we go.
yeah, Hank, the Macho Man has been here, and I've been watching the Destiny community, and I think they've gotten soft. See, the constructed formats and all these carefully laid plans, that's just not right. It's not how the world is. When I go into the ring, maybe Hulk Hogan's got my back, or maybe he's gonna hit me in the back with a steel chair, yeah. But I need people. I need them ready for the challenge of building something on the fly. That's what Dicey Companions is. This is the challenge I'm throwing to the community. Okay? The gauntlet has been thrown down. And when this releases, the Macho Man is gonna be out there challenging people. And I'm gonna be there to beat your body into a sad bag of blood and bone broth. Ooh, yeah.
Swagdean, you're just a hot dog in a showboat. Yeah. Wow. That was freaking classic, brother. Oh my God.
Thank you.
So as it goes, the tank always has a story to tell. So when I worked with the Misfits, Doyle, the guitarist, began dating Gorgeous George or Stephanie from the WCW, who was previously, or kind of still at the time, Macho Man's girlfriend. Okay. So we're playing a show somewhere in Florida. I forget where, but it was pretty much Macho Man's like hometown or close enough. So he shows up to the show to try and find out who is this Dooley. It's Doyle, Randy. But he comes to the show. He's hanging out backstage. We're taking pictures with him. Okay, and this was when he was at his WCW peak. He was juiced and jacked and just ready to explode. I'm trying to take a picture with him. I put my arm out to put my arm around him. I can't get to his other deltoid. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize he was that big. The only person I had done that with before was Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I couldn't get my arm around, but I expected that. He was a big barrel-chested guy. Macho Man blew me away when I did that. So he's pacing back and forth backstage in our dressing room while the band is playing, drinking beer. And it's not on our rider. We had like protein powder and water. So I don't know where he's getting the beer from. But this is not a good combo. A pissed off Macho Man who's like looking like he's ready to explode. He's going to rip right out of his skin. And he's drinking all night. He's pacing like a caged animal. So when the show is over, I'm up at the front of the venue at the merch table, and I'm wrapping up, and Doyle comes out. Now, Doyle usually, like after the show, he hits the ground running. He's off to the tour bus. He don't want to know nothing. It's Jerry only who's out front, like kissing hands and shaking babies and signing autographs. He'll sign your stepmother, whatever you got. Doyle comes out to the merch, and he's like hanging out in the merch booth. I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like sitting behind me. So it's not like he's there for the fans. He's like hiding behind me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing back here? He's like, Macho Man's looking for me. I'm like, get the freak out of here, bro. I'm not getting between you guys. Are you kidding?
I don't want to be that buffer.
I'm not. No way. So I was a part of a cosplay crew that did the 80s WWF Superstars. We did have a Macho Man who did did all that stuff. I did Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, which was a lot of fun to do because I met Mr. Wonder. I met Paul. May he rest in peace. This was a few years before he passed. And he told me, he said, I just loved to piss people off. But he was a nice guy. Like in person, he was a gentleman. He was a really nice guy. And I said, well, that, sir, you did in spades. You had the knack for that. So as that character, I just got to be the most obnoxious, just get under your skin guy. So it was a lot of fun to play that character. My wife, even though this wasn't a WWF star, it seemed fitting because it was funny. She cosplayed Andy Kaufman as the intergender champion from back in the 80s when he would feud with Jerry Lawler. And I ran into Jerry Lawler at New York Comic Con a few years ago. I was dressed as a Warhammer 40K commissar from the Imperial Guard, and he was like, "That's a nice jacket," because he was into like when he was the King of the Ring stuff. He had all the regal sort of stuff, and I had the very fancy jacket on. He's like, "That's nice." But I told him how my wife cosplayed Andy, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool! Andy was so great to work with. He was such a he sold it so well. Everybody believed that there was really a feud." I mean, as a kid, I was hook, line, and sinker. I thought for sure they hated each other. But that was great, man. I appreciate that. That was. I'm sure I've got more Macho Man stories that I probably can't tell on a public forum. But that
was a wild era because that was his madness era, right? WCW.
Yeah.
Team the madness.
Yeah. Hogan, just a hot dog and a showboat. Yeah. I've got plenty of WCW stories that I can share with you when we do after the Silver Sun draft. We'll go down the street for a beer because the Misfits were involved with those with the WCW there for a time. So we did cage matches.
I did not know all this stuff. I
yeah,
my Macho Man because my family got me the silly glasses for Christmas. For my birthday, so I had them around. I was like, well, if anyone would appreciate it,
I would totally appreciate it. And I don't know if you saw the pictures of my stepbrother, Denny Knight, who was Midian for The Undertaker. He was one of the Godwins. He was Tex Slazenger in the WCW. I got him wearing a Scum and Destiny shirt, and I was like, watch out, guys. I'm bringing the big guns now. You've been warned. But yeah, so he's still kicking around. So good times, man. Good times. Well, I'm sure we bored everybody, long enough. Let's get back to there we go. The usual rejects. So you may see this more and more coming up, just because we just like to have fun here at Scum and Destiny. We're always making fun of ourselves because we're not good enough to make fun of anybody else. Yeah, well, Swag, thank you very much. This has been an honor to be spoiled with spoilers. Let's do this some more in the future if we can, and I'm looking forward to this format, my friend. I think a lot of people are. Very cool.
I hope so.
Very cool. All right. Well, if we're done here, I guess there's really only one thing left for us to say, and that is, remember, the scum will be with you, always.
Always.
The scum
Will be with you always.